Welcome back to episode 15 of the Computomics podcast. This week's topic will focus around food waste. Computomics is always seeking ways of contributing to a more sustainable future with our technology, and in this case, we have implemented our CropScore automated camera systems with breeding assistance from the Max Planck Institute for Developmental Biology and interpretation from Colugo, a company focused on artificial intelligence for industry and research, also based out of Tübingen. This initiative is actually funded by the state of Baden-Württemberg in Germany, and I am really looking forward to this discussion with Johannes and Oliver. I hope you enjoy the show. So Johannes and Oliver, welcome to the episode. It's great to have you. Johannes, you are from Colugo. Maybe you can introduce yourself and your company, and then Oliver, you can introduce the Max Planck Institute.
Hi, my name is Johannes. I'm by training a physicist who went into neuroscience and artificial intelligence application and statistics. And we found a company about 1.5 years back here in Tübingen called Colugo. And our aim is to bring the cutting edge technology from the research into artificial intelligence to practical application, mainly in the fields of industry and medtech.
Awesome.
Hi, my name is Oliver, and I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the Max Planck Institute here in Tübingen. More specifically, the Max Planck Institute for Developmental Biology. And for this project, we'll be using our own and Computomics CropScore technology to provide high quality images that feed into this project and will be analyzed by artificial intelligence technology later by Colugo.
Yeah, it's an interesting bringing together a very different industries, but I guess that was probably the point of funding the collaboration. So, Johannes, maybe can you tell us exactly how you envision AI making strides in food waste and food science, and specifically in this project?
So the fascinating thing that we can do with the current AI technology that became very popular, deep learning, maybe most of you have already heard it, is the following. We can train these systems to understand patterns that are found in the data automatically. So these are self-learning systems that, without us teaching them to look for specific features, for instance in photos of plants, they can automatically derive what is really important and what is not important. And this opens a lot of new avenues for us to understand a little bit better images that we take from plants. Yeah? So for instance, we can, the long arching goal of that project is to really look just at this plant data and have an AI system that then automatically understands whether this crop that we have been growing is going to be durable or not durable. And no one knows what makes this plant really durable or not durable in the pictures. No one knows that, but given enough data, we can learn that automatically. And that is a quite fascinating avenue that has been opened, that has been becoming increasingly popular over the last 5-6 years.
Yeah, that's interesting. Maybe Oliver can give us a quick background of why food durability or food waste is even important, and what is exactly the issue that we are trying to sort of battle here with these images and with these calculations, and yeah.
Yeah, sure. So, like on a global scale, it's estimated that approximately a third of all food is basically thrown away. And some of that food, is thrown away by the consumer, but a lot of it doesn't even reach the consumer. So the goal of this project is to breed more durable, or, well, I should say, basically increase the shelf life of food in general. And more specifically, this is important for fruits and vegetables because their shelf life, is very limited. So plant breeders have been investing a lot of time and effort into growing more durable fruit and vegetable varieties. So this is not just from a sustainability point of view important, but also, of course, from a financial perspective, because waste is bad, and so this is kind of the angle that this project is aiming at.
So what is the usual flow of fruits or vegetables, and how are they usually tested or analyzed for whether or not they have a shelf life that is acceptable to go to market, or whether or not, so what is the usual workflow to determine those kind of characteristics?
So there's there's test setups that basically try to mimic like how fruit and vegetables are treated in the supply chain. So, for example, the packing is mimicked, the transportation in lorries is mimicked, like intermediate storage in warehouses, and then also the like display in the shops themselves. So there are standardized procedures for this, and what people usually do is at the start of this shelf life test, um, the fruits or vegetables or maybe even plants features will be assessed by hand. So there's different ways of classifying how, yeah, like the properties of plants. So and then this is also repeated at the end of this experiment to test how the shelf life, or how the display on the shelf and all the transport has affected the quality of food. And what's important is that this is a very laborious work, really. So it's manual, um, and it also may not be, because it's manual, it may not be very reproducible.
And so the project aims to cut down on on the resource use, and also increase the aspects which are more automated and reproducible. So, Johannes, is that where Colugo steps in with the image recognition?
Precisely. So, what Oli already explained, you have like a lot of features that you otherwise measure manually, and the idea is to do exactly this, but using computer vision technology and deep learning. Yeah.
And how do you get it to match what the person would have assessed anyway? So how would you get the computer to measure the same criteria as what the person would have measured based on what they value versus what the computer would value?
So that's exactly where deep learning comes in. The way it works is that on the one side we have images, and on the other side we have labels for these images. Let us, for instance, say how much leaf material there is, or what is the general state of the plant based on a review that was made manually. So we have a big set of these labeled images, basically. And now we have a self-learning system, a neural net, that looks at the images and tries to predict these labels that we manually have set. So how do you have to tweak this neural network? How does it have to respond to the images, basically? So it can deliver the output that we already know is true, because we have manually labeled this. And the hope is there that we then can catch automatically patterns that matter in the data. So what kind of things in the data, features, are really important for this review ultimately.
So essentially, patterns that even a person may not have known that they were looking for all along, the technology can pick up and get you to the same point, but via its own decision-making sort of algorithms. Did I get it right?
Yeah, in principle, yes. It doesn't necessarily have to be different features than what people would be looking for, but it can be features that maybe we weren't aware of. So that maybe some leaf is a little bit wrinkly, or there's some certain pattern at the edge of the leaf that tells, oh yeah, this maybe is actually of a lesser quality than what you would expect. But this kind of methodology has been extremely successful in image recognition has basically revolutionized it.
Well, what do you think has prevented industry from taking this up? Why have they been using trucks and people versus this kind of technology up till now? What has been the sort of gate that has been holding this away from them?
From my perspective, that's exactly what we're aiming here in the project. Actually, this is really two different worlds if you look at it. It's from a computer vision perspective, there are certain mandatory things that you really have to take into account, that you really have to take care of. And to close this gap is at the heart of the project, and that's where we at the moment spend most of the time. Just to give you an example, before we were talking about that we have pairs of images and the labels. Now, how are these pairs formed? And there's really a different understanding here from a traditional perspective from plant growers. You have this pair when you have an image and you have somewhere, like let's say a handwritten document stating, and that's basically the way that this works. Like this people who make these evaluations, they just handwrite it on a piece of paper, and then that's forms a pair in their perspective. From the perspective of computer science, this has to be in a machine-readable format, so it can be processed in many thousand instances. So it's really two worlds that are here that are still separated from each other. And the goal of this project is to pave the way that this technology is actually possible to be used. And the other big factor, of course, is the factor of time. All of these technologies are reasonably new, and to be able to use these kind of technologies on a relatively small data set in the range of thousands, this is something that is even as new as that we have to still develop it.
Mm-hmm. Got it. And so what would be the goal so that's the goal from the AI perspective and the image perspective. Oliver, maybe you can tell us the goal from the plant breeding and genetics perspective in terms of food waste and the direction that the MPI is taking with identifying traits.
So yeah, at the Max Planck Institute, we are looking at genotyping all the samples that we're looking at in this project, and so that we can correlate the genotypes with shelf life. And this is going to be really important, because then we can figure out what genetic features actually do contribute to increased shelf life. So we can then pass this knowledge onto breeders, so they can actually start breeding fruits and vegetables that are more suitable for this increased shelf
situations. Life. And which kinds of fruits and vegetables would you be targeting in the project? And then in general, what are the kinds of fruits and vegetables that really face this kind of challenge?
Yeah, so in this project we are targeting paprika, basically, bell peppers, and we're also targeting an ornamental plant. So two completely different things, but I think the important thing is that the mechanisms and the genes that we identify here, they will probably be relevant to a whole wider range of fruits and vegetables as well.
Interesting. Yeah. So it's essentially targeting food waste from computational perspective, but computational perspective splits at image recognition for food waste and then genetic recognition, or let's say gene-based recognition for the genes responsible for food waste. And from those two perspectives, the idea is to then tackle this problem from sort of computation of images and biology. Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I'm just curious, one last question from both of you, Johannes and then Oliver. How do you guys see this technology being expanded and used in other ways, or making a difference in other interesting perspectives? Because I guess when you founded Colugo, you weren't thinking that you were going to be targeting food waste, but it's a great way to sort of solve some of our societal challenges. Can you kind of imagine where this would go next?
I mean, the long-standing vision here is to radically shorten the cycle in breeding. So you can do a lot of breeding basically in silico, in the computer. So you have a powerful, possibly creative computer model that allows you to breed very, very precisely without maybe even having to plant, to carry out this breeding in the real world, radically shortening therefore the cycle. So you basically have very good guesses and estimates what will work and what won't work. So that would be the overall idea.
Awesome. I know that's definitely something Computomics believes in too, so that's great. And what do you think, Oliver, where do you think the Max Planck is going with the sort of long-term goal?
Well, I think, well, it's difficult to say, but I think reliable data is very important. So getting reproducible data that you can then feed into technologies such as machine learning, but that only works when your data is good. So being able to produce reliable data and making that accessible as well, because the data generation needs to be affordable for people to make more use of it.
That's true. That's true. And Johannes, how would you want people to contact you, and who would you want to contact you? What kind of collaborations or partnerships or clients are you looking for?
We're always interested in collaborating on big projects with a clear vision that fits our vision. And our vision is that artificial intelligence is a technology that's very powerful and has a lot of transformative character. So we are always open to new opportunities and new possibilities, particularly in the sectors of industry and medtech.
Awesome. And Oliver, what kind of collaborations is Max Planck interested in?
Yeah, so mainly Max Planck is being an academic institution is working on collaborations with other academic institutes, but we're also interested in collaborating with industry, because what we found in the past is that a lot of companies have very specific scientific questions that they would like to answer to then improve their products. So, and I think there is a lot to be gained by, fostering more collaborations between industry and academic institutes in general, not just from the company's perspective, but also for the academics, because they can see how their research is put into use, and I think that's a very good and mutual thing.
Yeah, I agree. I really respect the German state, for funding these kinds of projects. I think they really bring together very synergistic players who maybe would have had a hard time finding each other otherwise. So I think that's fantastic. We're really excited for this project. It will run about 1 year, and maybe we can get another catch-up call towards the end and see how everything came together.
We'll be looking forward for that. Yeah.
Yeah, sounds good.
Well, thank you everyone for listening to that episode on food waste with Colugo and the Max Planck Institute. I hope you enjoyed it, and thank you to some of our listeners for reaching out and getting in touch. We really appreciate getting feedback. We really love the fact that people are listening, that people are enjoying themselves, maybe learning something, and we always want to hear from you. So leave a rating or review, or send us an email, info@computomics.com. And until next time.